morning, beloveds, and my live stream is back to normal. I don't know what happened yesterday. As I suspect I touched something and made my camera go, yeah. But it is July 9th, and it is raining, and it has been raining since about 9 o'clock last night. Fortunately, it's been, for the most part, a fairly steady rain, so it looks like I'll be able to get out of my house without having to swim. Although we were watching the news footage, and my husband is from the Northeast, and he was commenting that the subways in New York are flooded, and that's saying something, because it takes a lot to flood those. Here, I mean, we live practically at sea level, and it doesn't take much to flood. Especially since we've had a whole lot of rain already just in the last few months, and the ground is very wet, and there's nowhere for the water to go. But it's been a fairly light, steady rain, so as long as it doesn't rain really hard, we'll get through this. The news wasn't on the TV about anything going on in Houston, so we're good. But other parts of the country, But Elsa's up there, so. And apparently she's moving fast, but she's tearing it up. All right. It is July 9th. Our title is I Am Mind. Our Bible quote is, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." And that is Philippians 2:5. This means that we should recognize the divine incarnation, universal in essence, but individualized in personal experience. The spiritual genius of Jesus enabled him to see that each is a unique representation, an individualized expression of one mind. The mind of God is in us. The mind of God in us is the mind of Christ. At the center of every man's being, the eternal Christ waits, knocking at the door of his intellect for admission. This is not a faraway presence, nor a future advent. The recognition of the Christ can come to anyone at any time and under any circumstance. The consciousness that walked over the troubled waters of human experience, the inner calm that stilled the tempest, is accessible to everyone. The indwelling Christ tells me that the words which I speak are spirit and life. There is a divine authority at the center of my being which announces itself in every act. I have implicit confidence in the invisible part of me, which is my share in the God nature, my partnership with the infinite, my oneness with all there is. Therefore, I shall not doubt nor fear, for my salvation is from on high, and the time of its appearing is today. I know that the Christ in me is always triumphant. I know that Christ in me is one with God. There is no separation, no isolation, no oneness. There is a divine companionship who walks with me, in whose light I see the light. Okay, he threw me on a line, so we'll go back. Because I am the child of a computer engineer, or not an electrical engineer, and I literally grew up with computers. My mom ordered her first computer when I was, 10 maybe. She ordered a kit and built it in our, I'm going to use air quotes, basement. I literally grew up with computers. I grew up with the green, the black screen with the green writing, and the dot matrix printer that was really loud, and the paper reams that had the tracks on the side that you pulled off. And I remember the early computer games. My first laptop weighed 15 pounds and was probably about this thick closed, and was used. It was well used. That one was gray, not green, but because Mom got it from a guy she worked with. I don't even know how old it was when she got it and sent me to college with it. The point of me telling you this is because I think of the Christ consciousness. I think of the Christ mind as software. I think of it as factory installed software. So Jesus was a man. He took on the Christ consciousness, which is where he got that last name. So any one of us could become the Christ. We all have the potential because the software is already installed. We are built from God's stuff. God has already pre-installed that Christ software. We all came with it. Jesus happens to be the best example of using the program fully. He accessed it and used it to the extent of amazing. And then he said to his disciples and to all of us, everything that I do, this and more you shall do. Meaning, he didn't even use it to its full potential. There was more in that Christ software, but he left us to discover it for ourselves. So every one of us has the potential to do everything that Jesus did and more. Because we already have that software, that Christ software pre-installed. And I think, this is just my opinion, my educated guess, that the password to get us into the software is love. And it is a love beyond what we typically think of. If you go back and look at the Greeks had either 7 or 9 different words for love. Because there's different kinds of love. There's romantic love, and there's family love, and there's sibling, brothers and sisters, and mother and father, and community love. So they recognize there's a whole bunch of different kinds of love. And then they talk about agape, and agape spiritual love. And agape is that non-judgmental love. There's nothing, agape is grace. Because there's nothing, you can't earn agape. Agape is given. And agape is always given because God can't help it. We were created from God, so God therefore loves us from that standpoint. It's like when you look at your parents, and this is if you have a good relationship with them. Your parents love you based on the fact that you are their genetic material. Well, that's the same with God. That's why God loves everybody, because we're all God's genetic material. We're made from God. So we are that Christ software is there, waiting for you to access it. And when you access it, so many things are possible. Okay, so I am mind. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Okay? So think of Christ like it's a title. It's a recognition of the access he had to that which was within him. Jesus was the man. Christ is the software. This means that we should recognize the divine incarnation, universal in essence, but individualized in personal experience. So everyone has the same software. What we make of it, that's us. That's us. And everybody makes it different. Everybody uses it differently. And there is no way to use the Christ consciousness wrong. Okay? There's no way to use the Christ because if you have activated the Christ consciousness, then you are using it by definition in love. So there's no way to use the Christ consciousness wrong. There is definitely ways to use the law wrong, but not the Christ consciousness. So that's that individualized personal experience. The spiritual genius of Jesus enabled him to see that each is a unique representation, an individualized expression of one mind. Of one mind. We all use that same mind. The mind that created the mountains, the mind that created the galaxies, the mind that created you. The mind of God is in us, is the mind of Christ. At the center of every man's being, the eternal Christ waits, knocking at the door of his intellect for admission. So Ernest didn't have computers. So, he's like, so the Christ consciousness is knocking at a door. That makes sense. Well, for us, because I did grow up with computers, it's a software running in the background. It's always there. I always have access to it. But it takes me actually being willing to bring that software from the back of my mind to the front of my mind, to make conscious use of it. And to do that, password is love. This is not a faraway presence, nor a future event. It's already there. It's already running. The recognition of Christ can come to anyone at any time under any circumstance. Because we're all individuals. We all have different life experiences, which is what we're here for. We're here to have those different life experiences. And we can trip into that software anytime, for any reason. There's going to be that moment in your life that's going to activate that agape, that spiritual love. And then you will run the Christ consciousness. Do you run it all the time? I don't know. I mean, did Jesus have moments where he wasn't running the Christ consciousness? Probably. I mean, you listen to the stories, you read the stories about the disciples, and there are a number of times Jesus rolled his eyes and went, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Was he running the Christ consciousness then? Yeah. Was it in the forefront? Probably not. So we don't have to run it all the time. But the more we practice, the more we will. The consciousness that walked over the troubled waters of human experience, the inner calm that stilled the tempest, is accessible to everyone. We're already running it. The problem is it's a background program right now, and what have we got to do to make it a foreground program? The indwelling Christ tells me that the words which I speak are spirit and life. There is a divine authority at the center of my being which announces itself in every act. There's a divine authority. You carry your own divine authority within you. Speak from it. And don't let anybody else's divine authority speak for you or at you. To you is different. But for you and at you, your divine authority. I have implicit confidence in that invisible part of me, which is my share in the God nature, my partnership with the infinite, my oneness with all that there is. Okay? So we are being asked to have implicit confidence in that invisible part of us, which is our share of the God nature. Because the God nature is so much bigger than we are. That's why I use the splinter, spark, splinter. Because it is infinite and I am not. And I can't even try to conceptualize infinite. So I remind myself that I have access to an infinite power. But a splinter of it. A splinter of it. But it's more than enough to do everything that I'm here to do. Because I have access to the whole of it. So if there's a part of it that I need that I'm not using, I can get that. You can get that. But sometimes it means we have to be willing to let go. Actually, frequently, it means we have to be willing to let go of some other things, including the idea of who we are. That we are limited material, mortal creatures. We have to be willing to let that go, to recognize that we are infinite spiritual beings having a material experience. And if we can let that other go and accept that, then our access is going to be greater. And the more we accept that, the more access we're going to have. Password after password after password, but they're all love. Okay. Therefore, I shall not doubt nor fear, for my salvation is from on high, and the time of its appearing is today. Because God doesn't know time. God does not know time. God is infinite. Time means nothing. It can be this moment. It can be the next moment. It can be 10 years from now. Oh, I hope it's not 10 years from now. I hope you find it much sooner than that. Because the secret is to know who you are. The beloved child of God. I know that the Christ in me is always triumphant. So I know that the Christ in you is always triumphant. That Christ consciousness, that spiritual love, that willingness to accept that heaven is right here, right now. I know that the Christ in me is one with God. There is no separation, no isolation. He has in here no oneness, and I don't understand. There's no separation, no isolation, and then he says no oneness, and I'm like, but that's which makes me wonder if that's a misprint. I don't know. But I know that Christ in me is one with God. There is no separation, no isolation. There is a divine companion who walks with me, and in whose light I see the light. So there is a divine companion who walks with you, and in whom you can see the light. You are never alone. Never alone. You always walk with God. You always walk with Spirit. You always walk with whatever word it is that you want to use. You are a beloved child of God in whom God is well pleased, always and forever. That is your divine truth. That is your divine companion. The Christ consciousness is simply software. Jesus was the great example, not the exception. There was nothing special about Jesus, only his willingness to put the Christ consciousness at the forefront of his thinking. And any one of us can do that. All right. Our mission today, should we choose to accept it? Our mission is the willingness to recognize that Christ can come to anyone at any time and any circumstances, including you. That's the mission. That is the mission. To recognize that divine companion which we have always had. We have always had. And then I also encourage you to do something loving for yourself, do something kind for yourself, do something compassionate for yourself, whatever that looks like. Absolutely whatever that looks like. You want to go dance in the rain, go dance in the rain. Or if you want to stay dry, stay dry. I'm debating on how I'm going to get out of my house today because I don't have boots. But it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day. So I encourage you to do that loving, kind, and compassionate thing for yourself. I encourage you to practice self-compassion, self-kindness, self-love, because you deserve your own kindness, your own compassion, your own love. You deserve it. And when you practice upon yourself, it allows you to have more for everyone else. It does. It does. You can't pour from an empty cup. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage you to practice it on yourself. To give that gift to yourself. There is no sun. In fact, I got up, realized it was raining, and actually went back to bed. So there's my loving, kind compassion. I got myself another, hour and a half of sleep ish, dozing ish. So I feel pretty good today. So I hope that you do something along the lines that makes you feel good. I do encourage you to drink plenty of water. I do encourage you to do something to engage your mind and your body. I don't know what I'm going to do today. Today was on the schedule was a bike ride. That didn't happen. It's too wet. So, all right. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out, right? It is Friday. I don't think there's anything going on in the center tonight. But email info@creativelife.org, get on that mailing list, and you can find out for yourself so that when I don't know, you do. Reverend David will be on around 5 p.m. with you on Facebook Live. I should be back at 9 a.m. because as long as it's not raining, I'm going to the park tomorrow. Other than that, feel free to check us out on the YouTube channels. Creative Life Spiritual Center has a YouTube channel. That is the name of the YouTube channel, and I have one. Mine is the Running Rev Ryan YouTube channel, and that's where all of this is archived, on the Running Rev. So, and because I manage both of them, they're organized into playlists to make it easier for you to find to get in there and look around and see what we've got. All right, beloveds, do what you need to do to have a wonderful day. And while you are doing whatever that is, because if it is actually 70 degrees, today would be a good day to open those windows, ever so briefly. And allow that breath of heaven to remind you do live in heaven now. All right? Christ consciousness is software. You came pre-installed. The password is love. The password is love. It can't be hacked. You have to have the password. But everyone knows the password, even if we don't think we do. We all know it. All right, beloveds, do what you need to do to make it a good day, a great day, a fantastic day, an amazing day, a wildly successful day. Or, if you need to, just have a day. All right? Know that you're loved.